Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Splatcast. I am Rhett. I have with me here Jace today.
Heyo.
No Anthony with us today, unfortunately. He is attending the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game today. He will be back. Temporary absence for Anthony today. Excused absence, I will add. But yeah, no Anthony today, sadly, but Jace and I will soldier on. And it's kind of a bummer, Jace, that we have no Anthony today. The season is here. We are 1 week in
Tough
to the
episode
season.
for him to miss, man.
Yeah.
But, he'll be back better than ever. Good day for him to go to the Tampa Bay game. They got their creamsicle jerseys
Creamsicles, yeah.
Good day.
I would say one of the best jerseys in the NFL.
Gotta be.
I really love those
Anthony.
Seahawks throwbacks too. But good one there for Anthony today. I don't even know how they're doing. I've been watching tape all morning.
Yeah, I haven't really been keeping up today too much either.
Cool. Okay. Well, like we said, we are 1 week in. So small sample size. I'm a big stats nerd, if you haven't picked up on that. From listening to the first two episodes, the preseason stuff that we did. I love my stats. I love my advanced stats. And the downside to like this point of the NBA season is there's not enough data to really quantify anything. And I can't really like back up what I'm seeing. So like, these are just takes.
Kind of running on assumptions.
Yeah, right. Over the course of 82 games, obviously anything can happen in this league. Anybody can beat anybody on any night. There has been some interesting stuff that we've seen, some really fun basketball competitive games here and there, some not so competitive games here and there too. But yeah, it's been a good week of ball. It's been good to kind of get back in the groove of watching games on a regular basis, and games that, how much they mean, I guess that's open to interpretation, but they mean something at least. Let's start. So just kind of general format, what we're going to try to do. And this is going to be probably changing as we get more reps at this and practice. But obviously, this is a weekly podcast. So what we're going to plan to do each week is just kind of go through the week. Games we watched, any developing storylines, just general blah, 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 whatever, right? So obviously, Monday, the 21st, no games on that day, but that was the rookie extension deadline. So there was some interesting extensions handed out that I did want to briefly touch on. And the first one for me probably doesn't come as a huge surprise to you, Jace, or to anyone who's listened to the first two episodes. But Jalen Suggs signed a 5-year, $150.5 million extension with the Magic, of course. What did you think about that one, Jace? Did you have any thoughts on that? Was that expected for you, or how do you feel about that?
I think for me personally, I think that it's a pretty good deal for both sides. I did expect them, to be sure to get him extended, keep him there long term. I kind of see Suggs, as like the epitome of a dog. Like
I agree.
He is
totally agree.
Aggressive everywhere. It's hard to find,
He's been, it's just 2 games, and I'm going to say that a lot probably today. It's 2 or 3 games for most of these teams, but he has been unbelievable defensively. Everywhere.
The defensive side of this stuff is like obviously his calling card. But
Certainly,
I think that he does enough on offense, whether that's, running the show as kind of like the point guard for the Magic, or just playing off ball, attacking. I think he does plenty. That's a hard combination to find in players, and I think that was a good, smart move by the Magic. Not really surprising, but good nonetheless,
Yeah. So, we have the Magic. We're going to talk more about the Magic, I think, later on in the episode today. But yeah, to the offensive stuff, he has had a slight uptick in his 3-point production. It's, again, not a lot of sample size yet, but he's taking a little bit more, making a little bit more. The percentage is a little bit better than what it was last year. But for me, it's the volume. He's going to need to be, based on what I've seen, especially in the Miami game, with the way Banchero in particular was playing, but Franz too. If he can just kind of be that release valve, if they're getting doubled or if they're getting lanes shut off driving,
sure.
If he can just knock down, I don't know, 2 or 3 threes a game, I think that'd be a huge help for them. And that's kind of all you need him to do on offense. Not turn the ball over, release that pressure.
Really just, him being willing to take those shots.
Yeah, he's going to have to shoot them.
That's
Absolutely.
the key to it, I think, for the Magic's offense going forward.
Yeah. Obviously, the money, like the average annual value on these contracts is getting pretty crazy, right? But I think if you look at the numbers, Suggs has earned this. For me, He's the best guy out of all of these guys that signed extensions on Monday. He had a better defensive EPM last year. It was plus 2.7 than Herb Jones at plus 2, Derek White at plus 1.7, KCP at plus 1.4, who obviously is now on the same team with them there, and Drew Holiday, who was plus 1.3. So, he's certainly up there in the upper echelon of like perimeter guards defensively in the NBA. For me, he's probably top 5. Yeah. So there's Jalen again, 5 years, $150.5 million, staying with the Magic there. I think we both agree that was a good contract.
Mm-hmm.
And since we talked about Suggs, I also want to talk about Jalen Green signing that extension. Obviously, the Rockets also signed Sengun. Sengun signed a 5-year, $185 million contract extension, which just briefly, I think that's a bargain for the Rockets.
Yeah, it's good value for a player like him, not a perfect player, but, super effective.
Right.
Really
not
productive.
A perfect player, right. But, I mean, if you look at what he's done production-wise, he's worth more than that.
Yeah.
So that was a really good deal for the Rockets. And I had written down in my notes here, I think the Rockets had one really good extension and one – I've decided this is a bad extension, the Jalen Green thing.
I don't –
3 years,
before you get started on that,
I
don't think that I would necessarily agree that it's bad, but just objectively, it's a strange deal. It's like it's the first deal like this on a rookie extension that we've seen, isn't it?
I think the Luka and Trey extensions were similar, but this is worth more money just because the cap has changed. But I mean, Luka and Trey,
right? He's not those guys.
No, he's not those guys.
Right.
But yeah, so I do, like you said, Jace, it's a very unique deal. So like I said, it's 3 years, $106 million. Third year's a player option. So first 2+1 rookie extension over $30 million annually since Trey and Luka, like I said. I mean, for me, I just haven't seen it. Like, he hasn't shown he's worth this kind of money and structure on the contract outside of that 1 month of positive basketball where he was just nuclear.
I was going to point out the 1 month,
Yeah, that you can't go without saying that, because that was, he was unbelievable. But yeah, so I talked about Suggs, and obviously, the average annual value on these two deals is pretty similar, roughly the same. If you look at the numbers, Suggs is just barely slightly less efficient offensive player at this point, while obviously being astronomically better defender. One of the games that we'll probably touch on later is that Charlotte-Houston game. I think it was the first game of the season for both those teams.
Yeah.
He was guarding Trey Mann down the stretch, and Trey Mann pulled them out of the grave. And Charlotte won.
Yeah.
Which, Trey Mann just went nuclear like in that second half. Green was guarding him. Mann's good, but I mean, you'd hope that a guy like Green could maybe slow him down. But anyway.
At least like compete with him.
Yeah, certainly. Like, and it didn't feel that way to me when I was watching it.
No, I think I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, so back to the Suggs and Green comparison, because obviously with the Green thing, there's like a bunch of different opinions on it, and I totally understand it. But if you look at last year, Green had a 45% true shooting percentage. These stats are going to be per dunks and threes. 45% true shooting for Green, 60% for Suggs. Like I said before, Suggs was 2.7 defensive EPM compared to Green's minus 1.2. Suggs' offensive EPM was plus 0.3 to Green's plus 0.5. So what I really think, Jace, the more I've read, and Keith Smith, if you don't follow him, I think he works for Spot Track. He might run the whole thing, but he's really, really, really good about these extensions. And like, he'll even go and like predict the value that he thinks guys would sign for.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll kind of go back and compare and everything. But I think it was Keith Smith that was talking about this that I was reading. I think they got him signed to this. They want to trade him, I think.
Really?
Yeah. So the rationale there is if they had not extended Green here, they would have had, if they wanted to trade him in the offseason, they would have had to do it through a sign and trade, which the team that was acquiring him in that scenario would be hard capped at the first apron, bringing him on in that scenario. So now you get past that hard cap scenario by signing him. And again, if you take that $30 million for Green and tack on like a Dylan Brooks, who I think is like 12 or something, you're getting into superstar money there.
Mm-hmm.
So it provides some financial flexibility, I guess. But I mean, it's just a lose-lose in terms of the structure for me. It's like either he is really good and he's worth it. You get him on a bargain for 2 years, he's out on that third. Or he's not good and he still has that third-year player option that he can accept if you're not able to trade him. So it's just strange to me. It doesn't really make that much sense.
And, you know, going off of what you were saying about you think it may have been a type of deal for like trade down the road potentially. To our listeners, if you've not listened to our preseason show, go back and listen to it. I spent a little bit of time talking about how I think Reed Shepherd was drafted to Houston somewhat as a replacement for Jalen Green.
Like a contingency plan.
Yeah,
kind of.
I don't really think, you know, offensively, especially, Reed is going to be as productive as Jalen Green is in moments, you know. But I think he could become a much better two-way player, a lot smarter, more systematic type of player.
I totally agree. More versatile, I would argue.
Which could, you know, definitely fit. And I think the big thing with the two of those guys is the difference in shot selection.
That was what it was for me. Like, Green's so dynamic athletically. Like, he needs to just be diving at the rim almost every time.
Right.
When he's really going downhill, he's really, really hard to stop.
Mm-hmm.
But he's just in love with like pull up jumpers, you know, the percentages will show it. That true shooting percentage I talked about shows it. And he takes really difficult shots.
Like there's possessions like every game with the Rockets where Jalen Green will make a shot, like make a tough shot. Awesome. Like that's great. And then the next 3 possessions, he'll do like 2 dribble pull up threes coming off a screen.
He does that a lot.
It's just, I don't know.
He'll just totally take that offense out of rhythm sometimes. You know?
Yeah.
And obviously, like if you want to be a superstar, taking and making tough shots is part of the deal. But we talk about this too a lot, Jason. We're talking about like prospect projection and scouting and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a lot less interested in tough shot taking and making than I am in advantage creation. I don't think that's like a new idea or anything, but like you watch the really, really elite players in this league, you know, tough shot taking and making, like I said, is a part of it. It's not the main thing they do. It can't be. It can't be. You won't be efficient enough.
The way that I think about that in terms of like scouting and evaluating, there is one type of player who you kind of want to see some flashes of that, you know, tough shot taking and making. And that is like these superstar caliber guys, like hands down first options on NBA teams.
Which there are not many of those.
No,
you know,
that is it's rare to see players like that. And so, you know, offensive, you know, spark plugs type of guys. Yeah, that's a good tool for them to have. But at least for me, when I'm watching tape, I don't care to see that. Like, it's fun. It's good. But what does it matter if you're not just objectively the number one option on your team? Like, you have to go get a bucket. Like, who cares if you can do that?
Yeah. Well, yeah, if you can do that, that's great. And there's going to be situations that you're in where you need your main guy to do that. But if you have a guy who's really good at creating those advantages, you're going to be in those situations less.
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
Yeah, strange move from the Rockets, in my opinion, but we'll see. I mean, I don't know. Again, financially, it doesn't really make sense, even if he really pops,
Time
because they'll
will
have to pay
tell.
him again. Yeah, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. So that's really all I wanted to touch on the rookie extensions. I did want to mention Aaron Gordon signed a deal on Monday, 4 years, $133 million, with Denver, obviously. I think that was like a do or die type of scenario with Denver, like had to get that deal done. I think it's fair value for Aaron Gordon. It's a lot of money. That team's getting really expensive, but I think he's their second best player, especially how it looks right now.
Mm-hmm.
But he's just so important to the way they play and what they do. And I don't really see him as being replaceable. So smart deal for both sides, I think.
And we both, we talk about him quite a bit. I think we both feel the same way about him. I think hands down, like the most two-way versatility on the Nuggets roster.
Yeah. Well, the way it looks right now, they need him. We'll talk about Denver more, I think. But yeah, okay. So I think that is probably good enough for rookie extensions. Obviously, there were some other interesting deals signed, but those were the big ones for me in terms of what I was really interested in. So with that, let's get into the games, man. Let's start talking about the games. So obviously we will start with opening night for the NBA season, Tuesday, October 22nd. First game of the night there was New York Knicks at Boston Celtics. That was ring night. And I do want to say, I want to give some kudos to the broadcast team here. Am I crazy, or doesn't ring night usually start like 30 minutes after the listed tip time?
Yeah, it's typically like a marathon.
Do the whole kit and caboodle
getting to the tip off. Right.
Yeah. So they were on time this time. They started the regular 7 minutes after regular tip time, which nice NBA. That's great. I mean, I'd love it if they would just start on time, but
would be nice.
Neither here nor there. Yeah.
Wishful thinking.
Another thing we gotta say on this, which I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's likely the last first episode of the season for Inside the NBA.
Oh, don't say it, man. Nothing makes me happier than tuning in to the first game of the NBA season, being welcomed by the man, Ernie Johnson.
The GOAT. The best that's ever done this.
That's going to hurt, man.
He's the best. Yeah. Okay. So all that aside, actually talking about the game, obviously the Celtics made 29 3-pointers in this game. That ties the record for 3-pointers in a game. I don't even remember what the final score of this was. I mean, it was a blowout by middle of the second quarter. Yeah. One little funny thing, I think it was 13 3-pointers that the Celtics missed at the end of the game consecutively to try to tie that record.
I was losing my mind in like the last 4 minutes of the game.
That was
like,
so
if you're
going
to get this close, just break it. Like, come on.
They tried.
Somebody.
They really tried.
They definitely tried.
That was really funny. But I mean, yeah, it's hard for me to even talk about Boston at this point. Like, what can you say that hasn't already been said a million times?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I think I'll save, because spoiler alert, one of the little segments we're going to do at the end is Team of the Week is going to be included. Boston's my Team of the Week, of course. So we'll talk about them a little more there. But yeah, not really much to this game. It was I think it was like a decent opener to the season, seeing something historic. It's pretty cool. But yeah, obviously not a competitive game. I think it's much more about the Celtics for me than it was about the Knicks.
Yeah,
definitely. If they're playing like that, nobody's going to be able to beat them. It's just the way it is.
I mean, while we're on them,
yeah,
all 5 of their starters were at least a plus 20. That first 5 that they have is just like every single one.
It's one of the best I've ever seen.
Is a two-way problem.
Yeah,
like I think they're hands down like the best team in the NBA for me this
Looks
year.
That way so far. Yeah,
they're just terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll talk more about them in the Team of the Week. I'll kind of save it, but yeah. Pretty impressive showing from Boston there. And I mentioned the historic 3-point performance for Boston in the first game. If we go over to the second game, we saw something pretty historic there too. LeBron and his son, obviously Bronny Jr., sharing the court for, I think it was like 2 minutes in the second quarter there. You know, I understand a lot of people are kind of tired of hearing about that or whatever, but it was cool to see that for me. I mean, obviously for me, LeBron is the best player that's ever played this game. No question in my mind about that at this point. And just, man, his being out there with his son is it his 21st or 22nd season?
I think 22nd.
Just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And he's been playing good too, LeBron. I think we're going to talk more about the Lakers.
We'll get
later.
into him.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I was kind of one of those people, that was like, when Bronny was drafted, like if they signed him undrafted, whatever. But just him taking up one of those draft spots, I was a little, like,
yeah, I mean, he's not an NBA caliber player.
No, but it's for LeBron. If anyone has earned that,
certain. I totally agree. Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was awesome seeing that happen. I thought that they handled it pretty well too, like it was quick.
Credit to JJ on that. He did it at the right time for the right amount of time and got it over with and got back to the game. I agree. I thought that was handled great.
In terms of, like the play style in this game, like obviously I think we both agree that the Lakers looked good, but I kind of think the bigger story from that first game was Minnesota.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit, obviously off of recording, but yeah, I was hoping you would share your thoughts on what you're thinking about Minnesota. If you want to do it now, we definitely can. I don't know if they were on your list for later or not.
I don't think that I really had another time in this episode that I was planning to talk about them, but this is strictly based on just this first game. Like the big thing that jumps out.
One game, caveat, one basketball game.
Anthony Randall. My goodness. Julius Randle.
Yeah.
It looked so weird in that first game. Obviously, it took a pretty big step after that for him. But I don't know. I was terrified watching him try to fit in out there. A lot of Minnesota's struggles that I noticed came from them putting the ball in Ant's hands and, kind of having him be the initiator.
Well, and I think that you obviously said that to me before. I kind of think that's going to be the plan.
I agree. And
that's what they're going to do.
He's got a long ways to go in terms of that.
I agree.
And like passing out of doubles, passing out of help defense, stuff like that. It's like, I think he has, decent vision, like pretty good vision.
He's a pretty good he's a pretty good passer. Yeah.
He just,
the processing is what's the problem.
He can't, he just can't be the guy out there setting the table.
Yeah. And I think that's okay. Like,
it shouldn't be what he's asked.
He's just not a point guard. Yeah.
Right. Like play to his strengths. Don't try to expand his game to the point of, really highlighting those weaknesses.
Well, and, obviously there's some new faces in there and they're trying to integrate that and figure all that out. And it's game one and they're going to experiment and try stuff. Finch will be smart enough to get this going.
No, I respect Finch a ton. I think he does a great job.
He's a really good coach. Yeah, we agree on that. But, game one didn't look good offensively. They really haven't played very well offensively to this point. I think the defense is going to be fine.
Yeah.
Statistically, I don't think they're like awesome right now. Let's see where they're at. So they're 12th in points allowed per 100 possessions right now, but the EPM is really good. They're third in total net. They're fourth in defensive rating right now. So the numbers are still really good, and they haven't figured it all out yet. So I think it'll be fine. But yeah, the first game looked really clunky offensively, slow to process. And I think a lot of that was Randall kind of trying to figure out where he fits. And he's kind of a slower processor just by nature. He kind of has a slower pace of play. certainly an effective offensive player. No, slight to Julius Randle. I think he's really good. But yeah, it's a change of style for them. It's going to look different, but I do still think they can be effective. Certainly.
One player that I think is going to kind of benefit from this different play style without Cat is going to be Gobert. There's a ton of mixed feelings.
On the offensive end? Is that what you mean?
I think on both ends, it's going to really kind of play to his strengths. My big thing last year with them, I know that it was effective at times, but the two big lineups, even with it being him and Cat, it was just so weird. Like, it didn't really feel like they ever were able to maximize those two guys playing together.
Yeah, well, I think given the trade, I think they agreed.
But I completely understand why everybody hates on Gobert as much as they do. But objectively,
he's good. I mean, he is good.
He could be the best rim protector of our lifetime. Yeah. He's one of the best, honestly, to ever do it with strictly defending the rim. And that's got to count for something. I certainly would think.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's good. He's made a lot of money. He's made a lot of, defensive teams and defensive player of the years. Yeah, he's really good. He's really good. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. Obviously, he's getting older a little bit, but yeah, I mean, like I was saying, they're going to be able to figure this stuff out. They're still really talented. I still think they're pretty deep. They'll be fine. Right. I think. Okay, cool. Is that all you had on the on those two games from Tuesday?
Yeah, I don't, kind of how the games were played out. I don't think there's really a ton to say. And again, first game of the season.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, like I said, that night, right before that Minnesota game tipped off, Rudy Gobert signed a 3-year, $110 million extension. I assume he had to have declined his player option at $46.6 million. So that's a really good move for the Wolves. Rudy takes kind of a pay cut in a way, sort of, but also gets, a couple extra years, pretty high value there. Sure. Good deal for both sides, I think. And I think Minnesota's had a really good financial offseason. They've got a little bit more flexibility than they would have, obviously, with Cat on the books. The Rudy thing helps. Like I said, they've got Dillingham, who looks to be pretty productive. We'll see about Terrence Shannon. But I think Dillingham's going to probably play quite a lot as we go through the year here still.
If they'll let him, yeah.
Yeah, well, did he not play at all in that first game?
I don't think he touched the floor in the first game.
That's really strange.
Yeah.
Especially given what we said about the offense looking a little clunky at times. Just throw him in there and see. But I think that'll be okay.
Yeah, I agree. Play. I think it'll kind of work itself out for him throughout the season.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, another thing, we'll probably, as we go through the week, pick a game or two from each night that we want to talk about, obviously just depending on the night. But one thing I do want to mention is player of the night for each night is something that we're going to do. So, probably comes as no surprise here on Tuesday, but player of the night, Jason Tatum, 37 points, 4 rebounds, 10 assists, 1 steal, and 1 block. He was plus 26 in the game, which, Jace, as you mentioned, they had 5 guys over plus 20, so much ado about nothing there, I think. But he was 14 of 18 from the field, 8 of 11 from 3.
Yikes.
So, flamethrower from Jason Tatum there. Revenge tour coming, possibly. We'll see. But he's had a great first week of the season. Obviously, great game there. So, yeah, he's the player of the night for the first night of the season. Cool. Okay, so we will go on to Wednesday the 23rd. Pretty much a full slate there on Wednesday. The first game that jumped out to me was Charlotte at Houston, Jace. Charlotte went to Houston, had a comeback win there. Did you watch any of that?
I watched the majority of the second half.
Okay.
I was kind of flipping around through games. I was too excited, NBA basketball's back.
Right. It's kind of tough that first night to prioritize. And first week, you don't really know that much, so you're kind of just flipping through. But yeah, so the big one for me was Trey Mann. A lot of pop off the bench. Like I said, he really it felt to me like he went and got him that game. Like he was on. Obviously, he wasn't the only one. We'll get to that here in just a minute. That played good for Charlotte. Sengun had a really good game in that game. I think it finished with 25 points. It probably should have been 35. The finishing at the rim is going to need to improve, and I think it can and probably will. But that's what's going to take these nights for him from, a moderately efficient 25 to a super, super efficient 30-plus game.
Right.
So if he can kind of expand his bag around the rim, he'll be worth every penny of that extension. I think he'll get there. But, another thing that stood out to me, Charlotte out-rebounded them 56-43 in the game. And to me, that's based on the kind of the structure of those two teams, that's an effort stat to me. Like, they just outworked them. So that was pretty interesting.
I don't know if you want to talk about him right now or later on, but having a healthy LaMelo Ball back for Charlotte, whew, what a monster night. That's kind of what
we are
he does
talk
for
about
them.
him.
But I just wanted to mention that while we were on the game. But Charlotte,
he was the best player on the floor in that game. There's no question.
Not close. But Charlotte, you mentioned Trey Mann, but they have some offensive weapons. Like, they've got some real interesting pieces, I think. I don't think they are like super talented. Like, they maybe are a playing team. I still kind of don't think so. But they have some interesting young guys for sure. I think that they could be, kind of near the top of the list for league pass teams this year as it progresses. I think, whether or not it results in wins, they got some players that are really fun to watch, really exciting, creative on offense. But
Charles Lee's got some juice.
Yeah.
Another thing, that was his first game as a head coach, and he won. So congrats, Charles Lee.
Respect.
Yeah, that's great.
Kind of hopping to the other side. One question that I had for Houston, which, he's a rookie, whatever, but like, are they going to try to focus on getting Reed Sheppard more involved on offense? Would you think?
We touched on that going back again to I think it was our first or second episode. Just given, the roster construction there, I did think it was probably going to be a slow start for Reed in terms of just the minutes. And,
he's a rookie. So it's whatever.
It's hard. It's really hard to play in this league. And there's certainly an adjustment period for, 99.9% of guys coming in this league. But I do think I think he's going to force his way in to it. He's a really good defender. He's probably I'm trying to think, their third best perimeter defender. Like Amin and Eason and probably him, right?
Dylan Brooks.
Oh, I forgot about Dylan Brooks. Yeah. Okay.
But whenever outside of just the defense, whenever you factor in like his jump shooting, which they need help on.
I love the shots he's taken in summer league and preseason.
He's smart. He's very smart.
And they're not all easy. He's getting good looks, but a lot of it is like coming off of that ball screen, kind of getting to the mid-range and hitting a pretty, quickly paced pull-up. Those are pretty difficult shots, especially for rookies, and he's taking and making them at a pretty high clip.
During the preseason, I went to the game here in Oklahoma City that Houston came to, and I was sitting with Jordan. I was telling her, like, doesn't he just look so tiny? Like, he looks so small.
He looks that way on TV.
And, like, as soon as I said that, he came flying off like a curl screen to the high post, caught it, just drained it. I was like, well,
no, I love him.
He's got some stuff, though.
Yeah, no, he's got some juice, and they're gonna just need him because the way it looks right now, I think they're probably gonna play a lot of close games because they are talented.
Yeah,
it's just like we talked about, coming into the year. It's challenging to figure out the rotations for them because they have so many guys they want to play, and they have
so
other
many
extension
guys they
decisions they need to make.
Play.
You
know what I mean?
Like Jabari is the guy that's sticking out for me. It hasn't looked great. And I would think they would want to get an extension done. I don't really know that. I think it's probably unlikely that they're going to be able to get that done just because it's kind of been up and down, and I don't know. But yeah, I think that's a guy they really want to play. They need minutes for Eason. But yeah, eventually I think it's going to shake out to where Reed's going to have to be firmly in that rotation. He's just that kind of guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, he'll get it going, I think. As far as Houston, I don't know. It hasn't looked very good to me.
A little clunky.
Yeah.
You think so?
Certainly.
Yeah.
And again, it just goes back to those rotations. But I do think they're talented enough to at least be a playing team. But again, 82 games, but you don't want to just throw them away. And it felt to me like they did that against Charlotte. They could have, and I think probably should have won that. But yeah, a lot of games left, and they'll win some, but I do think they're going to be in close games, and they are going to need to figure out that rotation for those kind of situations. But yeah, we'll see. That's going to another league pass team for me, I think, is Houston. Just
they'll be
all
fun.
The guys and all the talent. Yeah.
I don't really know exactly like what to point out of why I feel this way, but I love watching Amin Thompson play.
Me too.
Especially when
and
he
his
has
brother.
But when Amin has the ball in his hands, it's just like
dynamic.
It's
athlete.
Exciting. It's so exciting to watch.
Dynamic athlete. Well, I think he's like, I think I'm not the only person that feels this way, obviously, but he's so smart. Like, good passer, great cutter. Positionally, he's really good. Super engaged on defense. Smart defender. Just like such a toolsy player. A lot of people say that, but that's what he is. He's not going to shoot it, but he can do everything else.
Hopefully not. But he brings the ball down, dumps it off, cuts, and like camps in the dunker spot.
Yeah.
And like is dangerous down there. And that's just, it's such a, unique play style.
There's not many guys like him.
I just think it's so interesting, so much fun to watch.
I totally agree. Yeah. Both the Thompsons, I'm sure most people listening to this are already on them, but yeah, check them out if you haven't seen them. Another game from that night, let me check and make sure I didn't miss anything. Yeah, this was not a competitive game, but Cleveland at Toronto. Cleveland came out and took care of business in Toronto. I think they ended up beating them by like 30 or so.
Yeah.
But Mobley had like a monster game.
Mm-hmm.
I was really wanting to put him player of the night. He didn't make it. He was in the honorable mentions, which we'll get to here in a second. But Mobley, it was a great offensive game for him, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Did you watch any of that?
Yeah,
I'm sure you saw some highlights. Yeah.
Before the season, Kenny Atkinson, new coach in Cleveland, was really talking about he wanted to put an emphasis on that. And I watched,
smart move.
Like so much of the Cavs last year. And when Mobley was in space and was shooting threes, you could tell that if he got that put together, he could be dangerous.
Yeah.
And it looks like, so far this season, he's been attempting pull-up threes and stuff. And that's still a work in progress, but regardless of knocking down the threes or not, it just looks like he has so much more freedom on offense.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's just, it looks good so far to me.
Yeah, well, I'm going to kind of zig to your zag there on the Mobley offensive game because all throughout the offseason and stuff, that was obviously, like you said, a point of emphasis with the coaching staff, it seems, and with the media saying that, he needs to step up that part of his game, which I think is right. But to me, the part that can really kind of be immediately implemented with him is the non-shooting stuff. And I'm not saying this is the first year where he's been good at it, but in the first couple games that I've watched from him, he does look a lot more free in that regard, like what you said, Jace. But to me, it's the cutting, positioning offensively. He looked great in both of those two aspects in really the first two games. But and again, this has been seen in spurts, but it does look like they're going to let him get it out and go. And he's really good in transition. He's a good passer. He's pretty dynamic off the bounce too. Yeah. That looked better to me, certainly from the past couple of years. And And another thing that I thought was interesting is he really got it going offensively when he was staggered with Allen, like when Allen was on the bench.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder what they're going to do there. You mentioned with Minnesota, those two big lineups. It kind of feels to me like in most cases around the league, that might kind of be getting phased out.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there's exceptions to the rule there, but to me, Mobley looked best when Allen was off the court, at least offensively.
Yeah. And
Mobley, super encouraging for Mobley.
He's just, obviously he has great size and length, but he's just such a fluid athlete.
Oh, yeah. So he's awesome to watch. It's like a big, long deer running around out there.
Whatever he can, get out into space and, work himself free off movements and stuff. Like there aren't many big guys like that.
Yeah, no, he's super unique and it certainly fits that mold of like the future of the big position in the NBA, which I think we'll probably talk about a little bit more here in a bit. But yeah, okay, so I think that'll probably do it unless there's anything else you wanted to mention from Wednesday, Jace.
Works for me. I think those are the big things that jumped out to me as well.
Cool. Okay, so player of the night for Wednesday is going to be LaMelo Ball that we touched on earlier. Against the Houston Rockets, 34 points, 8 rebounds, 11 assists, 1 steal, 1 block, 10 of 20 from the field, 4 of 12 from 3. I did have some honorable mentions, again, as this was kind of our first full slate. Paolo Banchero against the Heat. They won against the Heat. Lauri Markkanen, they pushed the Grizzlies to the brink there in that first game. And then Mobley, who we just spent a lot of time talking about. So some good performances there. Okay, so let's move on to Thursday. Our favorite team played on Thursday night, Jace. Oklahoma City at Denver. Anything you want to say about that one?
Holy smokes. That defense, it was by no means a perfect game by the Thunder. But that defense, primarily on the perimeter, not even considering we have Chet, or the Thunder have Chet waiting at the rim. But we have so much depth on outside defenders. It's just like, how can you dribble against them?
Yeah, well, just the first 5 is pretty good, and it's guys that we mostly saw last year in most cases. Mm-hmm. So Joe started one game and Kaysen started the other.
Right.
Joe started this game against Denver.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that group was pretty good on the perimeter defensively last year. But with the changes we've made, your second unit, like you said, you're not escaping anything.
No, you don't get a breath.
It doesn't really change that much, at least in that regard, the perimeter defense-wise. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be we talked about the Celtics presenting that math problem with their three-point shooting. This isn't so much a math problem, but it's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know how teams are – it's going to be really a tough challenge for teams to figure out how to get production in that regard.
Yeah, they looked awesome. They played – every player that we put out there on the court, I keep saying every player that the Thunder put out there is like hustling, playing so hard. They're so
awesome
much fun. Yeah. There's just the level of aggressiveness offensively and defensively is just awesome,
Yeah. No, it's great. Well, and the first thing I had written down right after the game on this one is we didn't play that well as a team in that game. We shot terribly from 3.
Yeah. That has not
Dub kind of had a
stinker.
Either. Yeah. Through the first 2 games, it's been really bad in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
But Dub kind of had a stinker until like the fourth quarter. And by the time he kind of got it rolling, the game was wrapped up. Like we were going to survive a Dub stinker in Denver, which I think is the toughest place to play. And it's still Jokic, going into his house and beating him, that's always an accomplishment, especially being a division game in game 1. That's one you really want to pick up. But yeah, on Denver, that second unit looked horrible.
Yeah.
I got to say, it's a big concern. Big concern.
And those role players who on our preseason stuff, me and you were highlighting, like,
oh man, Strother's been horrible.
They're going to have to pick it up.
Yeah.
Like for
it's
Denver
really
to stay
like
alive at the top, like they need more from them big time.
it's looked like Brown has been pretty good. I think I don't want to be asking him to be a perimeter shooter. That's just not what he is.
Yeah.
He's such a good cutter and finisher at the rim. That's what he needs to be doing. But they almost have to have him taking perimeter threes.
Yeah, he's got to knock him down for how Denver's roster is set up. Like, it's kind of out of the question. Like, you're going to have to hit these threes.
Yeah, and obviously, like, Denver had some moments where they were kind of making a push. Like, obviously, it's a game of runs in this league, but they would go on runs, and it was like if Porter was able to knock down those looks on the perimeter, they would make a run. If he wasn't, we would just blow them out in those minutes, those stretches where he couldn't get it to fall.
Right.
So they've got Denver has problems. Denver has problems. They lost a 41-point performance from Jokic against the Clippers Saturday afternoon. Whew. Yeah, it looks really bad for Denver right now.
The last thing, and I see that you were talking about this in your notes too, but an extremely high for the Thunder and a very low for the Nuggets. Starting with the Nuggets, Jamal Murray. Like, what happens to him in the playoffs?
Stretch,
like,
that's what I was going to say. It's been the playoffs on. Bad playoffs, bad Olympics. He doesn't look good right now.
It just looks different. Like, I don't know if it's comfortability, like stuff with his knees.
I think he might be hurt.
Going on. Yeah.
I can't rationalize it any other way. Like, it's just not the same guy.
Yeah. It's looked very concerning, I think.
Well, he just signed that extension over the summer.
Yeah, but he's got to, get back to what he was.
Him. Yeah, they have to have him.
Yeah. But, on the other hand, the high for the Thunder. Chet Holmgren, man.
Yeah.
He may be here.
Let me read off his stats at Denver.
Please.
So we won 102-87. Chet Holmgren finished with 25 points, 2 steals, 4 blocks, 5 assists, 14 rebounds, 61% from the field. He was 0 of 5 from 3. But, yeah, he was the best player on the court.
He looked awesome.
There's no doubt about it. Yeah.
My favorite thing, the biggest thing that jumped out to me was his ability, to attack off the dribble.
Yeah.
Like, it looked so much better than it did last year. Like, he looks so much more under control, so much more comfortable, confident.
It just looks slower. That's something you hear a lot with younger players. When the game starts to slow down, that's when they really get it going. That's how it looked. Yeah. That's how it's looked through too, really, for him.
He's had a fantastic start to the season. Still early, obviously, but he's just he's killing it.
We talk about Jokic, and I revere Jokic. I still think he's the best player in the game. He's an all-time great player. Like, top 3 player I've ever seen play, like, in my conscious basketball watching life. But yeah, that night, Chet was not only the best big in the game, he's the best player in the game.
I would agree.
In that game. So that was pretty awesome to see. Yeah. Big win there. I mean, again, I don't think Denver looks great, but they're going to be hard to beat no matter what, just because Jokic is there. So
he makes up for a lot.
Yeah. So, that was a fun one for us as Thunder fans. Any other games you want to touch on, Jace?
Real quick, this, I think, is more touching on a player than on a game in particular. But the Spurs at the Mavs.
Okay, yeah. Mavs beat the Spurs in the first game.
I just, mainly from this, well, first of all, before I get into this, I thought the Mavs looked pretty good.
I agree.
A lot of this, some of this, same concerns as last season, but whenever they can get a big game from Clay, like good shooting game from Clay, especially, they're going to be trouble. Still,
both the Clay's games have been like that.
Yeah, and speaking
on the Mavs, he had 22 in the first one and 19 in the second.
Right.
And he's shooting well from three.
Yeah, and we haven't seen that in quite a while from him. But if he's going to do that for a Mavs, they've got a real good chance to make it back to the finals this year, I think.
Oh, I certainly agree. And after the game, did you see Chuck was saying, like, this Mavs team, they're a 6, 7, 8 seed in the West. I was like, if that's your take, like, that's okay. Somebody's got to be there, you know? Yeah. But, like, what about that first game makes you think that? I didn't understand that.
Strongly have to disagree with him on that.
Yeah, I disagree. Certainly, yeah.
But I wanted to talk a little bit about Wemby in this first game.
Yeah, please.
He's gotten, like, in his second game, he looked much better.
Yeah.
But in this first one, my big concerns was, playing next to Chris Paul. I figured he would be brought in, to kind of mentor Wemby a little bit and, help him get easier looks. But so much of their actions in that first game was just like Wemby ISOs.
Yeah, he's not in the right. He wasn't in the right spots in that.
No,
to be effective.
You can work on that stuff in game with Wemby all you want this year if you're shooting for more high draft picks, whatever you're wanting to do. I don't know what their game plan is going to be for this year, but just have him go like inside the perimeter. He can pop
and
out.
They did that a lot more in the second game.
Yeah. But it was just so concerning because, like, Wemby is awesome at attacking off the dribble, can be awesome, I should say.
Yeah, he can do it. It's not his strength.
No, like that should not be the first option coming down, getting him attacking with the ball in his hands. Like, just have him play a little bit more off ball, a little more off ball movements. And
that's
he's
really smart,
unstoppable. He's awesome, but
well, if you get him diving to the rim, there's no way to stop it.
Right. I agree.
Especially with a passer like Chris Paul.
Sure.
And maybe kind of the next guy in their mind is Castle, So they have some interesting stuff they can do. But I'm with you. I don't love him just out there kind of like dribbling ISO on the perimeter. That just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
He can do that to a certain degree. It's just not the best way to go about things.
I wouldn't be making that a priority at the moment,
Yeah.
But that's really all I wanted to say on that. We can jump around.
Okay. Yeah. So player of the night for Thursday, the 24th, Julius Randle, who we talked about. Julius Randle.
Big step from that first game.
Yes. So they went to Sacramento. They won the game in a tight one there. 33 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 13 of 17 from the field, 5 of 6 from 3. 5 of 6 from 3 for Randle there.
Wow, Julius.
Yeah, he was -3 in a tight game. Whatever. But that was just kind of interesting to me. Mm-hmm. There was a bunch of good performances that night. SGA, we talked about Chet in the Denver game. SGA was our leading scorer. He had a quiet 28. It felt quiet to me at least. Good game from SGA there. Good start for him. Chet, got to mention him there again. Ant and Luka. Luka had a good game in that Dallas game. No surprise there, of course. But, fun night on Thursday. Friday was not so fun for me. The only game that I was really locked into on Friday was Indiana Pacers, who obviously I was very high on coming into the year, at Knicks, who I was also very high on coming into the year. We talked about that Knicks game, the first game getting blown out at Boston. They turned right around and blew out Indiana on Friday. Never felt competitive to me at all. I watched the whole thing, and it was really brutal as a Haliburton believer. Haliburton was 0 of 8 in this game. He shot the ball 8 times, and in the first game, he did not play very well either. I think he made 1 3 against the Pistons. They came away with a win and a squeaker there against the Pistons, who look a lot more competitive.
I agree. That was one of my preseason takes. But any step's a good step for the Pistons at this point.
Yeah, well, and they've taken a good step so far. Again, small sample size, like we've been saying, but promising stuff from the Pistons. But so I got to talk about Hallie a little bit. He is, they see him as a superstar, certainly. I would agree. I think a lot of people would agree that he's kind of on that level as a player. Mm-hmm. I tweeted about this. I was watching some of his film, catching up for today this morning. The Detroit game is okay for me. He hasn't been very assertive as a playmaker or a scorer yet. The 18 shots is like pretty close to right especially on a night where it's not really working. He was 6 of 18 against Detroit in the win. The playmaking and stuff, it just looks to be like in the flow of the offense. Like he's not really like making anything happen right now for the most part. Mm-hmm. Like there are obviously exceptions throughout the game, but he's just looked far too passive to me. And that passivity really came into play against the Knicks. He shot the ball 8 times. He didn't make any of them. So obviously that's bad, but you cannot shoot 8 as a player of his caliber. It doesn't matter. Like you have to, if you are 0 of 8, you're probably going to get blown out anyway. So you have to keep going. You have to shoot more.
Right.
It's just so frustrating to me because I think he's really got it, but man, he's just got to really be more aggressive. I just expected it to gel a lot better than it has, and the reason they got blown out against New York is because they couldn't guard him. But we kind of knew that going in.
Right.
But yeah, you just got to be more aggressive. Got to have more from your guy. Better effort to me, I think. And maybe he's not healthy or whatever. I don't know. But, got to have better effort.
And I kind of feel like we're on a little bit of a Haliburton roll right here. So what would you think about just throwing all our thoughts on him out the table instead of saving it for the team breakdowns for later on?
Yeah, let's do it. Because that was the main thing for me on the Pacers.
Yeah. I completely agree. It has been so strange with how he started the season. He's currently 6th on the Pacers in scoring.
That's unacceptable.
Yeah. It's not cool. Force your way up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're supposed to be the guy. And you would agree with me. I'm pretty sure that last season he looked like one of the better passers in the NBA. He's not even leading the Pacers in assists. Siakam's leading them in assists, and he's currently tied with TJ McConnell and Neesmith on their team. Yeah, both of them good players, but they're not the guy.
Won't win. Yeah, no.
Yeah. He's got to get that figured out. My goodness, man. It's, again, early in the season, but do something.
One kind of contrast, it's guys kind of in the same sort of breaking out as an elite superstar kind of level for me is Anthony Edwards and Tyrese. And we've talked about the Wolves, and it hasn't been perfect and stuff for Ant, but Ant is that is never an issue with him. He is going to be aggressive. He is going to, they are going to live and die by what he does. That is the way you play the game when you're the guy. You can't, and I understand the rosters and everything are different and everything. And Tyrese is going to get this figured out. But you got to be, it just comes down to really just being aggressive, being confident, and knowing you're that guy.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he really has got to get going quickly.
Yeah.
Because you can't, again, I know it's early in the year and stuff, but you don't want to be giving games away. And it's tough to go into New York and win, but they're lucky they won that game at Detroit because 0-2 start, not ideal with where they want to be, having been, as far into the playoffs as they were last year.
Right.
It's just not good.
But on a brighter note for the Pacers, though, my 6th man of the year pick, Benedict Mathurin.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned. He's been fantastic.
He's looking really good.
Yeah.
And I've been a big fan of his since he was coming out of Arizona, but he's looked awesome. He's playing to his strengths, playing aggressively. I think he's, set up for a potentially big year this year for himself. I love him. I think he has a little bit more pop on the defensive end as well, than he typically gets credit for. Not an awesome defender by any means, but again, he's aggressive. He looks confident out there.
He's engaged.
Yeah.
Defensively.
I think it could be, a pretty good year for him going forward.
Yeah.
I hope so. Make me look smart, if so.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you are looking pretty smart right now. Me, not so much, but a lot of season left. Okay, cool. So, for Friday, player of the night, Trae Young. 38 points, 8 rebounds, 10 assists, 4 steals. That's pretty impressive. He did have 7 turnovers in that game, but the Hawks at that point are 2-0. But guess what? They're coming to Oklahoma City tonight. So
Amen.
we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, we'll see.
I did also want to mention on the Hawks just real quick, Dyson Daniels has looked awesome.
Yeah. No, he looks much better than he did last year.
Yeah. Yeah, so just a quick aside there. But yeah, honorable mentions for Friday. Buddy Hield, Kobe
Boomer.
White, I think he had 35.
Mm-hmm.
And then Giannis with another great game, of course.
That's kind of a funny group of honorable mentions. Kind of surprising.
Well,
group.
we're going to have a lot of nights like that. It's the NBA.
Yeah, you never know.
Okay. So I watched a couple of games last night. Nothing really has changed. But what we'll kind of do, I think, on a week-to-week basis is like when we get to Saturday, we'll kind of start putting together our notes for the week. Obviously, if there's anything crazy that happens on Saturdays, we'll take that into account. But at this point, Jace, I had 3 teams from each conference that I wanted to just quickly kind of run through before we get to player of the week, etc. So yeah, let's start with the Western Conference. I want to start with the Los Angeles Lakers. They got to 3-0 last night.
Mm-hmm.
They beat the Kings. Anthony Davis is playing like borderline best player in the NBA. I think he's averaging around 35 points a game right now.
Mm-hmm.
They're really letting him initiate things on the offensive end more so than they did last year. Just everything's working. Guards have done a great job finding him in the right spots at the right time. His shot diet's been great. Reeves, to me, looks really improved. I kind of see him as like the point guard for this team, whereas D'Lo's more of like the off-guard shooter type of role.
I could see that. It's kind of weird. It's always going to be kind of weird with LeBron on your team.
Yeah, he's still LeBron, certainly.
Yeah. But I get what you're saying.
Yeah. So they moved to 3-0, like I said. So far, again, very, 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 very small sample size, but I don't think that they are shooting well enough or taking enough attempts from 3 to like be in that true contender range. But they're going to present a lot of problems just with the way they're put together. They kind of have an unconventional roster in terms of like the modern NBA in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
So their team I'm going to be paying a lot more attention to. They look pretty good so far.
And they're one that, in our preseason rankings and stuff like that, I think that I may end up being pretty wrong on them. I wasn't too high, but like I
don't think I was either.
They look so much different, like a lot better up to this point. I do still think they have some pretty glaring depth questions in terms of like rotations and everything. But if Anthony Davis is healthy, like you were saying, like he's a top 10 player in the NBA.
Yeah.
Like
certainly
pretty
looks that way now. Yeah.
One more. This is just kind of a fun little stat from last night with them. LeBron was the first player with a quarter of 15, 5 and 5 on 100% shooting. And like, come on, man.
Yeah,
he's almost 40. Like, I get it's LeBron, guy. But like, give it a rest, man. Stop.
He could play for 5 more years if he wanted to. No, I bet he doesn't want to. Maybe he does. I don't know.
First 60-year-old NBA player.
Yeah, seriously. He's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I also wanted to mention on the Lakers, Hayes, I think, has looked really good.
Yeah, a lot.
They might not want to panic on going and getting a big. He might be serviceable. Like, I think he's looked really good so far.
He looks like he's processing a lot more easily than he has previously in his career.
Yeah, I've been really impressed with him so far. Okay, let's go over to the Mavericks before we get to that last team in the West. Cool. I didn't really have too much to say about them. We kind of touched on them a bit. I do think that defense is not perfect. There's questions on that regard, but offensively, they're just a whirlwind.
Yeah,
especially with Clay playing the way he has, and it does look, obviously. I don't know. I don't really want to say a better role. He obviously had a lot of success in that role in Golden State.
Sure.
But it's a different role.
It changed later on in his tenure there.
Definitely did.
Still,
but it's a different role in Dallas and looks to be a very, very, very good fit so far. He's been a flamethrower on the perimeter and getting really, really good looks and knocking them down. So, I've been really impressed with the Mavericks. They're big in the front court, deep in the front court, I think. So, yeah, just like we said coming into the year, they're going to be tough. So,
Yeah.
they look really good so
I
far.
still think, they're pretty easily, at the moment at least, a top 2 team in the West.
Feels that way to me.
Yeah. But yeah, I think this is kind of what you were saying. I don't think it's a real surprise with how they've looked, but yeah, I agree. I think they've looked good to start the year as well.
Yeah. Okay, last team in the West for me is the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Whoop, whoop.
Moved to 2-0. We got our third game Sunday night. We talked about them a little bit, Jace. We talked about the defense. We talked about the Denver win. There was just a couple points I wanted to make here. I thought this was pretty interesting. First team in NBA history to shoot 35-plus threes on worse than 25% conversion and win both those games by at least 5.
Yeah.
We won both of those games by 15-plus.
Right. Yeah.
So that's, I have mixed feelings on that. I want to shoot better from 3, but it's pretty encouraging that we're still able to be effective regardless.
No. Yeah, I completely agree with that. And, last year we were the best 3-point percentage in the NBA, correct?
We were the best. We were not very high on attempts.
No,
we did not shoot enough.
I think that is pretty promising for that picking up as the year goes on, like us shooting more consistently.
I agree. And at this point in the year for every team, it's process over results.
Sure.
So just do the right things, and you got to believe that, you'll kind of regress to the mean. Yeah.
That defense. Wow.
Pretty incredible. I did want to mention a stat on the defense. So this is Dunks and Threes defensive rating. Thunder are first in the league in that regard right now at plus 6.4. Second place is the Orlando Magic. No surprise there. They are plus 3.5.
Oh, wow.
So we are first by a very, very, very wide margin right now. And just for a little bit of context there, if we go over to the offensive rating on dunks and threes, the Celtics are first at a 4.6. The Mavericks are second at a 4.6. The Kings are third at a 4.5. So in terms of the two sides of the court there, that's a pretty impressive, lead in terms of that differential.
Sure.
So that's pretty interesting.
But
anything else on the Thunder, Jace?
I have a question for you.
Okay.
About the Thunder. I want to get your opinion.
Great.
At the absolute highest, like the most games possible, how many games do you think the Thunder will allow more than 100 points this season? Like, I kind of think it's not going to happen too often.
Yeah, it doesn't look that way right now.
What?
20?
I wonder what the record is going to be. I was thinking somewhere between 20 and 30 games.
Yeah, 20 to 30 I think is a good range.
Yeah. But, they're just – how do you score a bunch against them?
I just want to see more games and, see different roster constructions and, what the counter to that is.
Sure.
I watch a lot of basketball and everything. I'm not a coach.
Sure.
But I don't know how you – I don't really know what you do.
Especially after they bring Hartenstein back and even J-Will back. It just looks like they have a potential matchup for basically anything, not including Boston. But
that's a tough talk about a tough problem to solve,
man.
Yeah, but it's going to be fun, man. I don't know. They're tough. They're going to be a tough team,
right?
Okay, so that will wrap it up for the West there. Those were the 3 most interesting teams of the week for me. Over to the East, we already talked about the Pacers. Is there anything else you want to add? I think we pretty much covered my main thoughts on them.
I think we did plenty for them.
Yeah. Okay. So Orlando, that we just talked about in terms of that defensive rating, Banchero's looked really great to me. Much improved. And obviously had a great rookie season. Yeah. Very aggressive, hunting mismatches on the offensive end. Passing is still really good. He's got a slight uptick in his threes. We mentioned that with Suggs at the top of the show. But I'm not really even that concerned with how well he shoots from 3. But if he's taking them and he's a threat, man, that makes him even more dynamic as a driver, as a passer, finisher. So, yeah, obviously he's going to be the engine. Franz hasn't really popped off to me yet. I'm sure he'll get it going. I love Franz. Big believer in him. But, yeah, obviously the defense is great. We know adding KCP to that infrastructure, I certainly expected that to be really good. Sure, I'm not the only one, but they have been really good.
Surprising stat that I saw from them so far. I don't know how many times I'm going to keep saying this, but like early in the season, who knows? But I saw that they are third in 3-pointers made per game and sixth in 3-point percentage. Which
if that holds, they will
that's trouble, like big time trouble. And I'm
that's
sure that
pull.
it will drop a little bit, but like wowzers if so, because like that was the biggest weak point I thought in their offense last season. So like if they make a big leap in that, who knows, man? They could be really good.
Yeah, well, like I was very high on them, obviously, and I think you were moderately high on them too.
Yeah,
I don't think Anthony was so much. If
4 or 5, right. Where I have like 5 maybe.
Yeah, I mean they may be better than that. We'll see.
Yeah, who knows?
Cool. Okay, yeah. So obviously, last in the East, Boston Celtics. Like I said at the top of the show, I don't really have too much to say about them that hasn't already been said. I already talked about the math problem with just the way they play. Even if they're not playing that great, it's really tough to beat them.
Sure.
To me, I've watched them a couple of times now. The only wart that I can kind of see is like without KP, they kind of have a rim protection problem. It's super minor, again, based on the way they play and how good they are everywhere else defensively on the court at all times, pretty much. It doesn't really matter that much. But that's kind of like the only weak spot I've found with them so far.
With that rim protection, you still got to get to the rim.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So
that's not easy to do against them. One thing that I've been really impressed with, and I think this is a lot on the coaching staff, but also a lot from this offseason, even after, coming off of the championship last year, they do such a good job of like finding ways to stay motivated.
Yeah. Missoula probably has the
he's
juice.
A maniac, man. But yeah, that's terrifying in a team as good as them. Even when they're like on top of the world coming into the season, finding ways to get fired up, finding ways to play hard. Like for a team like that, that's pretty concerning for the rest of the league, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're the class of the league.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a couple teams that can challenge them, but I mean, it's going to be a tough task. Okay. Yeah. So with that, so this is going to be kind of our wrap up segment. So what we're going to do each week, we're going to do player of the week. We're going to do rookie of the week. We're going to do team of the week. So I think as we go through the season, we get a little bit closer to the draft. We're also going to add on some evaluation segments for Jace to kind of lead the charge there. Obviously, that's his wheelhouse, but still very early in the season. Once we have a better idea of where teams, may finish in the lottery, we'll probably get a little bit hot and heavier on that. But yeah, let's start player of the week. So I've got a guy written down on the doc. I'm actually going to change it.
Oh, you're going with it. You're going for it.
Yeah, I'm going to give this to Anthony Davis. Like we said, the Lakers are 3-0. Anthony Davis is at 34 points per game, 11 rebounds, 3 assists, 57% from the field. He's been awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you look at the teams they beat Minnesota, Phoenix, and Sacramento. There's 3 pretty good teams, I think, in the West.
Yeah, definitely.
And Anthony Davis obviously leading the charge there. So that's my guy for the week. Do you have a guy, Jace, that you want to talk about there for player of the week?
The 2 people that we had on the list, I thought were pretty hands down the best 2. The other person that we had was Jason Tatum, averaged 33, 6 and 6, 48% from 3, and like you pointed out earlier, on 11 attempts per game. It's just like, still 54% from the field overall. He's looked really engaged, really good on defense as well, but I would agree with you. This is probably Anthony Davis for the first week of the season.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, so let's go over to the rookie of the week. And this was kind of a challenge for me. We haven't seen a ton of, production from the rookies yet.
Sure.
I think that was probably expected by some people just based on like the, all the talk about this class and everything. But for me, one guy did have a pretty good week. Yves Missy for the New Orleans Pelicans. Really good week. 10 points, 6.5 rebounds, 1.5 assists, 2.5 blocks per game. He's playing 22.5 minutes on average for the Pelicans. I think they might need to start this guy.
I think they have to.
Yeah.
Not only are they just really missing a center in New Orleans,
yeah,
but his impact so far is just undeniable.
So he's your rookie of the week too?
Yes.
Yeah. Pretty easy for me there.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. But yeah, no, he's just an athletic freak, a quick decision maker. I thought that he would be a little bit more of a project player after he got drafted after, one and done year at Baylor. But yeah, no, I've been very pleasantly surprised with him. He's been awesome. Having another lob threat out there next to Zion, could be super exciting to watch. But yeah, no, he's had a fantastic start to the season. Like you were saying, with this draft class, kind of being viewed the way it is, any of these guys could pop off and have an awesome week. Just kind of out of nowhere.
It's wide open, especially in terms of those all rookie teams.
Definitely so.
Yeah, so great week for Yves Missy. Great start to his career.
Mm-hmm.
There were a couple other guys that I wanted to mention on the rookies, both Toronto Raptors, actually.
Yeah.
Jamal Shead and Jonathan Mogbo. Mogbo. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, not a ton in terms of what's on the stat sheet, but two really good defensive players that have had some impact in somewhat limited minutes, but interesting guys for me that I didn't have super high expectations coming into the year.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
And just real quick, I just want to touch on Jamal Shead. He was filling in his big game, 10 points, whatever he finished with. That was kind of out of the blue. He was filling in for an injury to Quickly in that game. He got banged up a little bit, but yeah, definitely took advantage of the opportunity. Probably better than anyone how high I was on Jamal Shead.
Yeah, we're both Shead heads.
Coming into the draft last year. So that was super fun to me, super exciting. One other rookie that I wanted to mention was, number 1 pick, Zachary Risachet. Statistical stuff, kind of whatever, but I've liked what he's shown. He seems like he's making good decisions. He's definitely shown flashes of what he could be. Again, nothing too productive in terms of stats from him, but overall, I think he just looks good, looks promising for long term. So don't forget about your number 1 pick, guys. Remember him.
Right. Okay, that's great. Yeah. Okay, so to wrap it up here, Jace, we'll do team of the week.
Sure.
I've got the Boston Celtics.
Gotta be.
So they are second right now in adjusted net rating. The Thunder are first. The Celtics are plus 7.5 there. The Thunder are plus 8.4. But the Celtics have played, according to Dunks and Threes, a tougher strength of schedule so far. I believe the Thunder are 13th in strength of schedule. Again, we've played Denver and the Bulls. Let's see. The Celtics, where did they finish? 7th. So a little bit of a jump there. Yeah, I mean, again, we've talked on and on about Boston. I'm sure that'll be a pretty common theme throughout the podcast, but
probably so.
Yeah, it hadn't always been easy. They had a pretty tight game against Detroit last night. But yeah, they're winning. They look great. They're going to be tough. Blah, blah, blah. So yeah, team of the week for me is Boston.
Same old, same old.
Yeah. Is there anybody else you want to give an honorable mention there too? I mean,
one other team that you had on our list, Cleveland. They did look good. I think, more so in terms of kind of that Eastern middle of the pack type team. Not middle of the pack, but like middle of the pack in terms of playoff team type stuff. But yeah, no, I think their offense especially looks like it flows a lot better than it did last season. They look great. The Thunder also look great. They need to get stuff figured out on the offensive end still a little bit.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think Boston is terrifying for everybody after the first week.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And on Cleveland, I did want to mention they're third right now in adjusted net, third in offensive adjusted net, sixth in adjusted defensive net. The Cavs and the Celtics are the only two teams in top six of both of those categories. They've also had a fairly easy schedule so far, but that's still a really interesting trend.
Sure. Could the Kenny Atkinson era in Cleveland be off to a hot start?
It is. It is off to a hot start.
Looking good
we'll
far.
see how it goes.
We'll see.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's going to do it, I think, for the third episode of Splatcast. We got some games we're going to start watching, I think, here this Sunday afternoon. But we will be posting our first round of episodes this week, and we will be posting on a weekly basis moving forward. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and we hope to see you next time.